This episode is brought to you by Pepsi Wild Cherry. Pepsi Wild Cherry is bursting with delicious cherry flavor and a sweet, crisp taste that gives you more to go wild for. Getting wild may look different these days, but whether it's opting for a solo Friday binge watch or a big night out, everyone can indulge in their wild side with Pepsi Wild Cherry. Also available in Zero Sugar. So grab a Pepsi Wild Cherry and get wild.
Introducing Royal Caribbean's newest ship, Icon of the Seas, the ultimate family vacation. The ultimate 6 slides, 8 neighborhoods, 0 compromise vacation. The ultimate never done that, can't wait to do it vacation. The ultimate chillin' by a different pool every day of the week vacation. This is the Icon of Vacations. Icon of the Seas, arriving in 2024. Book today. Come seek the Royal Caribbean. Ships Registry, Bahamas.
Hi there, Duke fans. Welcome to episode 500. Yes, I said the numbers. 500 episodes of the Duke Basketball Report podcast. Yeah, we've been fudging the numbers lately just so we could do this the right way. Joining us for episode 500 is Kenny the Dog Dennard. Before we introduce him, I am Jason Evans, your host this week. Joining me is Donald Wine and Sam Klein. Donald, you're back from Vegas, huh?
Yes, I just got back literally 20 minutes ago from Vegas because I need to get on with the dog. But hey, it's not fudging numbers if it's correct. Okay, we're at 500 for a reason. We need to get Kenny on the show, and I will change numbers around all day if we need to make sure that he's on for 500 because that's what we do here on the DBR podcast.
100, 200, 300, 400. The man's here for 500 as well. Sam Klein, how are you doing today?
I have nothing to add. Let's get this going.
Let's get this going. And the laughter you hear there is none other than Kenny Dennard, former Duke great, longtime lover of the program and connected to the program. Kenny, how are you, sir?
I am fantastic. I mean, after the past 6 weeks of watching our guys grow up right before our eyes, it's just brought back that feeling of hopefulness that we've taken for granted for so many decades. That since the pandemic and everything, and then, you know, it's just delightful to be a Duke fan and feel the way we do today.
Hey, I want to ask you one question that came up to me, just in the past couple of days thinking about this team. And then I'm going to hand it over to Sam because I know Sam's got limited time and I know he wants to get in. But my question for you is, I commented yesterday on the podcast. I was like, 2 weeks ago, if you'd said to me, oh, everybody's going to be picking Duke to win the national title, or not win the national, but make the Final Four. Everybody's, we're going to be the trendy pick. I would have said, you've lost your mind. Like, it just didn't seem possible. Are you the same way? Are you like, where did this come from?
Well, I look back over the years. You think about how Duke plays in the February and into March. And at many times we had a shorter bench. We had less guys playing, and they get tired, and then March there'd just be no juice left really to take on the challenge. But I think this year with the injuries and the youth, these kids are 17, 18, 19 years old. 20, I guess, is their oldest player, or besides some of the transfers that came in. If you look at their legs, they played AAU where they played sometimes 5 games in a weekend. So you're looking at a whole different type of athlete. We don't have, we're long and we're tall and we're lean and we're fast, and it's just a unique team this year, and they've come together. I mean, you look at the last 6 weeks really, and then they had that Virginia game where they got robbed, and whatever it is that people think is, you get a roll going, just like 1978. We won 13 out of our last 15 games or something like that. So 2010, look at that. 2015. So if you look at how you can build up to be ready for the NCAA tournament, winning the ACC championship, I was telling everybody, as long as nobody gets hurt in the Virginia game, I'll be pleased. A win is a bonus. You just want to have a healthy team going into the weekends. That first weekend, there's one game, then there's a second game. Then you hopefully survive through that and keep moving. But this team, I think, is in great position. Coach Scheyer deserves a ton of credit, his staff, how they work these kids. I mean, this is probably the youngest team we've had. And at this point, we're all hopeful. We're all excited. But I could have said that. In fact, Mr. Sensitive, my buddy who I forward his missives all the time, he said after that Virginia game in the end of his things, let's not fret. Let's go out and beat Notre Dame, win the rest of them out, win the ACC championship, and then march into March and win the national championship. So, I agreed with that. I thought this was possible. Now, who knows what's going to happen in the tournament, but I think we're in as good a shape, 5th seed, 4th seed, 6th. Seeding doesn't matter. As long as these guys, look at these guys. Virginia had never played against that team they played against the other night. This is a whole new team.
That is a smart comment. You are so right about that.
Nobody's played against them.
Yeah.
Nobody has, because this team has come together in a way where everybody knows their roles. You hear all the pundits on TV and whatever, but that's what it takes to have a winning run, is to everybody know their roles, everybody play within those roles, and stay out of injuries. Injuries are look at all the teams that have been in the top 10 all year, and they're questionable now because some of their players are out. That's what happens at the end of the year. So if we can stay injury free, I think we've got as good a shot as anybody.
Kenny, going back to that Virginia game, that's the last loss that we had back on February 11th, right? And it ends in terrible fashion with the matter to be that matter had been resolved according to the ACC. Do you think, and I know some people have talked about how funny it is to say that Duke had a chip on its shoulder after that loss, but do you think they played that way in the last, month or so?
Well, chip on the shoulder is kind of an overused term. I would just say more resolve. They were more, they're not as affected by their surroundings. They didn't freak out. They didn't whine about the refs on the Virginia game. And the ACC came out and said it was a mistake. But even if they had won that game, I think they'd have the same resolve, because that's the way this team is maturing. And that's the way the coaching staff is working them every day in practice. So I think it doesn't hurt to have that on their shoulder, that chip you said. But I think on the other side is what it takes. I just remember our drive, and I hate to keep making it about me. Well, sort of. The 78 team, when we started our run, our coaches kept us very focused. In fact, I'll never forget Bob Wentz. Bob Wentz put a stair-stepping chart on goals and aspirations for the rest of the year. And he said, here, this is where we want to be, but we got to take these steps to get there, one at a time. And then every time we did it, he marked those off. That board stayed there for a while till we came back from St. Louis. I think this mentality that Coach Scheyer has, I've really enjoyed watching him speak on television and going into halftimes and timeouts and after games. He's been there. He's done this. And he's only a 34-year-old or whatever age he is. He's so wise beyond his years, but he's got real long-lived basketball IQ from both being a coach on the floor and now a coach on the sidelines, a head coach.
Kenny, to stay on Jon Scheyer for a second, I know we had last talked after it had been announced that Scheyer was taking over the program, but we haven't spoken sort of since we've gotten to see him in games. What are you seeing from him, either that, like, as you were just referencing, sort of echoes what he learned from Coach K, and what elements of his style do you think are unique to the Jon Scheyer experience, and things that you're sort of like, oh, I'm surprised that he's like chosen that as a strategy or as a way of deploying his guys or building a staff, anything like that?
No, he's his own man. That's the thing. I don't identify really anything in his except the years that he got to sit next to the GOAT to watch and learn. But he's got his own manners. He's got his own personality. He doesn't have really any legacy Coach K type of histrionics, or I remember
I did notice the other night he did pull one of the referees aside the other night and start. He wasn't giving him the full like Coach K,
Coach
tirade,
K,
but he was sort of he was sort of giving him the hey, come here, let me talk to you about what I think about.
We need to start a pool for when Jon Scheyer gets his first technical.
It could be a while. I mean, it could be a while because he like he said, I think I saw an interview where he says everybody says that he's patient, but people around him, his family and whatever, say he's probably one of the most impatient people, but that's what he said publicly. But when you look at someone, I think most of the military and strategists that talk about crises, I mean, we teach crisis management to our clients at our firm, is the ones who keep their head while everybody else is losing theirs are usually the ones that win. And I think you can count on Jon keeping his head in most all situations. And again, he doesn't have the tenure, the 20, 30, 40 years like Coach K had to be able to go off on refs. I mean, I remember times when Coach K would they'd call a timeout, and then the players would set up in a way to where they'd have like a wall all the way out into the court where Coach K, the assistants would talk to the players. Coach K would get down on his squat position and just blow that ref out at the foul line while he's standing there. Nobody could see what he was saying, but it was just a tactic that, that's just different personalities. But I'm really pleased as a Duke fan, as a former player and part of the brotherhood, Jon has really, put aside a lot of the critics to thinking he wasn't the guy. He is the guy. I said he was the guy last year. I said he was a guy the year before. In fact, I predicted, if you remember, I may have told you this, I did a podcast with George Karl for his Truth Plus Media a year before Coach K even thought about resigning or retiring, sorry. And I said Jon Scheyer would be the natural next guy. There were others we talked about, but I don't know why exactly I said that, but it just seemed right because he's perfect for the next phase. Coming after a legend, look at all the people that came after Adolph Rupp, John Wooten, all these guys that have had huge dynasties. Those first one or two or three coaches have had troubles, but I think the way you look at retirement strategies of Coach K, Mike Bray, Jim Boeheim, Roy Williams, who wins the retirement strategy? Coach K. All the other guys, it just wasn't smooth. It wasn't cohesive. It wasn't continuity. I felt bad for Jim. I was going to say,
Kenny, you don't think that the Jim Boeheim experience was planned out that way?
No. And I love Jim. He was on Coaches versus Cancer board for all the years I was there, and he's such a great guy. He gives of himself, and he's such a really special person. It was sad to see it go down the way it did. That's all I can say. I mean, I'm just sad for anybody. I mean, it's going to kind of linger out there. But look at how Coach K Mike Bray's probably second on the retirement planning schedule. He got
although Kenny, I mean, you have to admit, the past couple of years, especially this year, did not go well at Notre Dame.
Well, still, he didn't have what happened to Jim, and he didn't just quit after the season with Roy. And I love Roy. I mean, I love all these guys, and they're all friends that I can pick up the phone and call. But the thing is Jon has stepped into a well-orchestrated succession plan, not like on HBO, but like a real life. We teach succession planning too with our public companies on what's the best way, how much time to give Wall Street notice that the CEO is going to retire, all those types of things. And Coach K did it textbook.
On that topic with Coach Scheyer, have there been any sort of specific things that you've witnessed this year that you're like that you think are going to become like staples, like the way that we talk about the Coach K ref tirades as being like sort of emblematic of his style? Are there things we're going to look back on from this year and be like, man, it's amazing that Jon was doing that even in his first year, assuming that he's able to stick at Duke for a long time and that he's able to, I don't know if he's going to be as successful as as Mike Krzyzewski was, but at least successful enough that he's sticking around.
Well, the start has been very exciting to watch. You really can't develop trend lines until you have, points out in the future. So we don't have enough, but the start has been amazing. And I think with all the attention and pressure and just the nature of the level of Duke basketball in the ecosphere of college basketball, it's been a fabulous transition. He's handled it well. He's taken a team that, everybody knows had all this high school hype. Trust me, I don't follow any kids that come to Duke before they come to Duke. I don't follow their ratings. I don't believe in that stuff because high school is high school no matter what. And until you get on that court the day practice starts and have to play with guys who are as good or maybe even better than you, and you thought you might be hyped up more, it's learning how to play within that team. And that's the hardest part because there's a lot of talent out there these days. There's tons. Look at across the spectrum. There's tons of talent. And there's kids playing every day that are better and better and better than years past. But it's how you get them to play together. So I think that's what I think we should take from this is early indications are he can build that team and camaraderie through adversity.
Kenny, thanks. Stick around. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to ask Kenny for some NCAA tournament picks, and we're going to discuss the NIT. All that coming up. All right, we're back from the break. We're still with Kenny Dennard. God, I love these interviews with you, man. I'm going to hand it over to Donald. Let him ask you a little bit about the NCAA tournament and your picks for the field.
Yeah, well, first off, before the break, we were talking about Coach K and how he's handling retirement and also coupling that with the pressure that Jon Scheyer kind of walked into being the successor to Coach K. And, I think you were at the Notre Dame game. I think I saw you there. That was the first time Coach K showed up at a game with Jon Scheyer as head coach. First time he showed up in Cameron as a spectator. And there's been talk all season long about, how involved, or at least, Coach K being at these games and how, the reaction will be. Do you think entering this tournament that we see Coach K maybe come to a couple games, or is it one of those things where he's going to still kind of stay out of the limelight and let the sun shine, as you will, on Jon Scheyer?
Well, I wasn't at that Notre Dame game, but I appreciate you thinking I was omnipresent there.
I see you at most of the games. So
yeah, well,
it's almost
year,
a given that you're at a game.
This year,
I feel like when Kenny is there, you definitely know it. This depending
year,
on the outfit.
This year, because of my work schedule and the way the scheduling worked, I only got to come back for the Carolina game at home this year. So that's the only game I've seen live, but I've watched them all on TV. But I could just say this from what I think I believe. I don't have any direct, word from anybody, but Coach K wasn't really there for Duke. He was there for Coach Bray. He wasn't, I think that's why he was there, to support the brotherhood, the coaching tree, and it's Mike Bray's last year. I think that's why he was really there. I don't think he wants to be in that small box and have cameras on him very often. He didn't look very, he looked kind of stoic there. And it was pretty much, I don't think you'll see him at any of the games in the tournament either. So I don't know that. I'm just saying my gut is I know Coach K and he's moved on. I saw him yesterday on the Aflac commercial. He's kind of, so he's in there. So
he's got his own schedule now.
Yeah, plus he's got so much he's doing. He is very busy from what I understand, and he's always helping others. I mean, the things that he and his family do to help people, that it's undocumented, but it's amazing. And I know some of the stories because he's helped my family. So, I think that whole thing was, I love Roy Williams. I just think, him sitting there in that corner. I sat over there next to him. I went with George Karl last year. In that game, we beat him by 20, and I sat with George. Phil Ford was behind me. Roy and his wife were to the left of me. And the nicest thing Roy said was, "You were very much a gentleman, Kenny. Thank you for not getting up and hooping and hollering during the game." But I love Roy. But, I mean, sitting there and getting all that TV time, I just think hasn't reflected well on the continuity of the program. It's almost like he feels like he's in the wings waiting for Hubert to fail. It's what it looks. It's what people said to me. It's not what I was said. You know how that one goes. But from that perspective, I think everybody's got their life plan and their goals and aspirations in the right place at Duke.
So I know Jason has a question about the NIT and linking it to UNC kind of turning down the NIT. But before we do that, let's get back to this Duke team. Before the break, you held up your bracket. I know the listeners can't see it, but we can see that you had your bracket all out. So we got to ask you, who's in your Final Four? How far do you think Duke's going to go?
Well, I've got, this is, again, it's throwing darts at the board. I've got Alabama and Duke beating Alabama. I've got Miami and Gonzaga. And Gonzaga
I think that's a pretty popular Final Four.
And I've got Gonzaga, Duke, and then, of course, Duke winning. Duke always wins in my bracket, so everybody knows that for the last 40 years.
You know the rules.
That's right. But I do have an alternate bracket. But the thing that I did on this one that I think may surprise people, and it's a tribute to the brotherhood and a hopeful aspiration that Howard beats Kansas. Because Kenny Blakely Blake is at the head coach at Morehead. I saw him balling like a baby after they won their tournament championships, and I just figure if anybody can figure out a game plan of how to beat Kansas, and Kansas has some questions. So, and I certainly hope Bill Self is recovered from whatever routine procedure he went through, which I couldn't understand while it was so super secret. Because everybody cares about the guy. He's not got an enemy in the world. Why would they not? Because all the rumors, and then they had to come out and say it wasn't a heart attack. Okay, well, just what was it? If it's routine, just but I understand HIPAA laws and all that stuff. But I kind of went. But to Kansas, I had losing in the first round to.
Howard. That'd be
I'm
awesome.
gonna tell you, if Howard beats Kansas in the first round, DC will be the place to be. The place to be. But so you mentioned, obviously, you're like us. You have Duke in your Final Four. You have Duke winning it all. If there's one thing that you can pinpoint that's going to be the key for Duke to make it all the way and cut down the nets in Houston, close to where the dog lives in that area, you get to be there live. But to get there, what's the one thing that you think Duke needs to do over the next 3 weeks to make that happen?
Have no injuries.
I like that.
That's
an
it.
easy.
Because I think when you prepare for these games, you don't know these players and these teams, and you have, like in the ACC, you know everybody's tendencies. But in these games, I remember, we played in NCAA 3 years in a row, and you just, even though there's tape out there and whatever, you just haven't. Who's focused on? What is it? Who do we play? Let's see.
Oral Roberts.
Oral Roberts. Who's focused on Oral Roberts other than a couple of highlights on SportsCenter? I think they got a tall guy.
I got all I know about them is that in the time since the bracket was revealed, like a handful of my friends have looked up their KenPom rating and said that Duke got screwed by the bracket, but it doesn't mean that any of my friends can name Oral Roberts' starting five.
Right. So the thing is, if a number of great coaches in multiple sports have said, if you can execute what you want to do, and you can do that in precision, it's not really important what the other team's doing if you do what you do best. So if we play that defense we're playing, and we get the offensive rebounds, we get block off, get the boards, and stay out of foul trouble, which I think we've been pretty successful this year of staying out of foul trouble, surprisingly, especially as how fluid the game is and how much pushing and shoving and reaching and arm bars. You don't ever know exactly what they're going to call because it's all going on at the same time. And how many flops have you seen that have never been called? I mean, it's just it's
Tyrese Proctor got called for one like in one of the first games of the season, and we came on here and we were like, "Oh, this is going to be such a slog." Like,
yeah, I think they must have sent a memo. Don't call those anymore.
Like maybe just don't do this. This is kind
yeah,
of
exactly.
Go away.
That's right. But the point being is, if we stay healthy, coach and his staff will have these kids ready for the next game. So right now they're focusing on Oral Roberts, and then whoever's after that. If we want to win, obviously, but there's no looking beyond. And then that's the hard work for the assistants when they. You win that first game, then you got to scout the next game, or you've already scouted. I'm not sure the timing of who's playing, who win, but there's not a whole lot of sleep going on between that first game and that second game for the coaches. People don't realize how much work it takes to get your team as best prepared as they can. Because whoever it is, whether it would be Tennessee or it would be Louisiana, which I have Louisiana beating Tennessee. So, however, if Tennessee wins, I may actually get to go to the game. A buddy of mine said he'd take me on his jet because he's a Tennessee guy. So who knows? We'll see.
Life of Kenny. That's not a bad life to lead, my friend.
I do have some nice friends with private jets, but every now and then I get the call. So I'll just
Kenny,
leave it at that.
If you want any of those guys to be our friends too, I'm always available.
Put in a good word.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no, you got it. We'll bring the whole team.
All right, so Kenny, we're going to wrap it up here with this next question. And I don't mean for this to seem like a slam on the North Carolina Tar Heels, but maybe it'll be a little bit of a slam on the Tar Heels. And I'm related to you. Your first 3 years at Duke, your teams all made it to the NCAA tournament. I believe all three of those teams at some point during the season were ranked number one, or they were very, very highly ranked at various points during the season. And then your senior year had to be very disappointing for you. You guys had a lot of the same players who had been a key part of those teams that had made deep tourney runs, and it just didn't work out for you guys. You ended up getting an invitation to the NIT, and you guys made a decent run in the NIT. You won a couple games, and then the season in your career was over. Talk to me first of all about, if you can reflect on it, the mentality of a veteran team, an experienced team playing in the NIT after what had to be a disappointing season.
Well, I mean, there's no comparison to this year's UNC squad because our success was 3 years. We lost Mike Jaminski, Bob Bender. It's not a apples to apples comparison. Now, after my freshman year, when we played in the finals, and then the next year we didn't make the tournament, but there were only 54 teams, I think, back, right. Or I can't remember exactly, but 48. I think there were only 48 teams back then, in '78. But long story longer, it's not comparable. But the thing that I know with Gene and me and Vince and the kids we had on that team, we were happy to go play again, just to extend our college experience and play. Gene broke his wrist at some point, which helped me against Alabama. I got 25 points and I don't know how many. I did a double-double, which I rarely got double-doubles because Gene would always have the ball.
Right.
But the only other time that my most famous double-double was points and steals, which has never happened before. So,
wait, you had a double points and steals? That's a serious game.
Yeah, when I had 11 steals, still the ACC record for steals in a game. So I had a double of points and steals. But point being is we were just happy to keep playing, right? If we'd have had that same thing happen to us after freshman year, who knows? I don't know. It didn't happen. We went to the NCAA tournament. We lost in the first round though. Okay. So shit happens. Let's just face it. Now with Carolina, I will give some, I have so many good Carolina friends, and so many of them are not feeling well this season because of the way the season went. If you think about it, it's a natural progression for where we are in the state of the game today. You've got transfer portal, free agency. You've got NILs, which help that facilitate transfer portals. Because I would say maybe the reason they didn't go is because the transfer portal opens today. This is the 13th of March. and 4 or 5 guys could get offers, okay, to go play in somewhere else and not be associated with this pretty awful year. They're all probably feeling pretty awful. I know a lot of their fans that I know are. So that could be the reason that they didn't want to go to the NIT, is to just get moving ahead, and they got to reconstitute the team for next year. And there may be 4 or 5 transfers that go for the money and NILs for senior year or an extra COVID year. I don't know. I'm just saying that's a plausible scenario, in my opinion. As far as not doing it just because they didn't want to go to the NIT, I think it's more about the Benjamins than it is about the Pride, because they could win the NIT, okay? Let's face it. If they wanted to and they put their head together, they could go win the NIT. And then I think some people say, oh, they're afraid if they lose the NIT, they look at, well, whatever. But I think it's probably more about NILs as opposed to NITs.
That is a really interesting perspective. Sir, we thank you as always for the good humor, the good insight. You are welcome anytime, and guaranteed we'll have you back on for number 600. Kenny Dennard, thanks so much, man.
I hope I'm alive for it, and I hope to see you on Houston in a few weeks.
I love it. I love it.
We'll see you in a couple weeks, man.
Thanks.
That's, again, Kenny Dennard, Duke legend. This has been DBR Podcast number 500. Duke Band, play us out and take us home.